and I've never, ever seen him before in my life. And he's behind a podium in a suit, and he's doing this thing, and the hairs on my arm stand up. You know what I mean? It's like I have a visceral emotion in that. Now, we've spoken. Lucid AF, in my opinion, or at least curmudgeonly, like honestly dishonest or something. I don't know. But that made no sense to me. And then it just opened the floodgates. And then I saw a lot of stuff. So I'm happy to share some fun ones. I'm happy to share some weird ones. But like, that was the moment that I was knocked conscious.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Drop the Mask. I'm very happy to have this next guest on. He is the host of the Knocked Conscious podcast, a fellow Arizonan, and he has the distinct honor of being the first person to host me on their show. Mark Puls, welcome.
Hello, sir. How are you? Live stream. You're the first live stream. You popped my live stream cherry, sir. Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry for my poor performance, but thank you for having me anyway.
I think it was doing very bang up job. Anyone who listens to this should listen to that one. Stop this one. Listen to that one first, because it works out that way, I think.
Yeah, you got me to talk about myself a little bit. That's not something I do a lot of, so it was different. I like it.
I hope to get to know more about you, man, because like it's just like cracking the egg. You know, you just got to get started, and then it opens up, and once the conversation, you don't even know the cameras are rolling and everything's going, and stuff comes out.
Yeah, it was great, man. Tell people about what you're doing with Knocked Conscious. It's a fantastic name and a very underrated show, by the way. I don't know what your numbers are, but whatever it is, it's not enough. You've been doing it for a few years, and I'd say you're really good at it. So what's the premise? What's the idea behind it?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me on. As always, anybody willing to share their time with me, man, this is a blessing. So we're grateful that we have the honor, the privilege to do this. So thank you, first of all. So what happens is it's called Knocked Conscious, and what it was like I was basically a very normal person, and basically something happened to me when I was 40. I kind of mentioned that to you, and I know you're curious about that, so we'll get into it very quickly. But basically something happened to me. It was an experience that knocked me conscious, and since that moment, I've had experiences that are perceptions that are outside of what you and I would normally perceive in reality.
Would you describe yourself as woke then?
No, I'm not woke.
Okay.
You know what? That's such a weird thing, because it's kind of captured, because I think the woo thing started with awakening, right? It was like an awakening, and like woke assumes like the journey's done. Like you're not woke. Like woke is like it's all on. That's like on. This isn't an on-off switch. The journey of life isn't like an on-off switch. It's like a dimmer, right? Like sometimes it gets brighter and sometimes it gets darker, and you got to navigate those times, right? So may I share kind of how the Knocked Conscious stuff really happened?
Please. Yeah, you were on this live stream. I saw it. You mentioned that you had this life-changing event at age 40 and also a near-death experience at age 13. But no one, I'm not good at this. And even me, I'm screaming like, ask him about it. What's going on? Please tell us what happened.
So first of all, I mention it because I've mentioned it before a couple times. I don't mention it so people ask, but it's crazy. So I'll start.
But it's a hook, right? It is
a hook. It is a weird hook. Yeah. So I love that you recognize it. And like, once again, we were totally focused on something else. So I totally get it. Yeah. We were like totally talking about Scott Horton and Provoked, and we were locked in. So, but basically what happened was June 21st, 1988, I was going to a Philadelphia Phillies game, and 4 of us were supposed to go, and 2 of us ended up not being able to go. I was only 13 years old, so I was a passenger. So my mom hesitantly let this person drive me to the game. Now, I live in Philadelphia, or just outside Philadelphia, so we had this cargo van that was a catering cargo van that was a work van that we were leaving from. My mom says, all right, go to the SEPTA, Southeastern Transportation, go to the train station and take the train downtown, but don't drive downtown with the van.
Mm.
The guy's like, all right, no worries. So we're heading to the game. And he's like, oh no, I just missed a turn for the SEPTA train thing. He goes, that's cool. We'll just drive downtown. I don't care. And like something in me, I'm only 13, but something in me's like, I'm not coming home tonight. You know what I mean? It was like a weird, like, it was a weird moment of like, seriously, you talk about choice and effect, right? Like, it just something was like, crap. That really was not. And what's interesting was I didn't want to go the whole time, but I never really could tell my mom I didn't want to go to a Phillies game. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we scalped the tickets against this wall. Now, if you ever scalped tickets back in the day, it's not like online. It's like 50 dudes lined up on a fence and they walk up to your car. They hand you cash. You hand them the tickets and then they hand it's very different, much more direct transaction. So
Mm-hmm.
we drive up to the thing, scalp the tickets, sit down. About, one inning in, this couple walks in. Young middle-aged gentleman, woman, maybe late 20s, early 30s at the most, young woman. And they sit in the seats that we scalped. I'm 13 years old. I'm like a little rapscallion back in the day. So I'm like, hey, how'd you get those tickets? I start kind of asking them what they paid for the tickets and stuff. I'm like, oh, we scalped them for like, this much or whatever. So I was just like razzing them about how much they paid or whatever. So later in the night, we're heading home, and I'm asleep. And the cargo van's like a 70s cargo van. It has a lap belt, but it's like broken. So I'm sitting in the passenger side. I've got my left leg up on the dashboard. I'm asleep. We get in a car accident on the way home. I get
Whoa.
ejected from the vehicle. So my near-death experience is during that event, I recall hovering over my body. I was in like a fetal position, just curled up, and I saw the blinking, ambulance, fire truck,
Wow.
whatever emergency vehicle. So I get taken into an ambulance, get taken to an emergency room. They shove a tube down my throat. They patch up. I have a broken femur, blood's everywhere. They're asking me, trying to keep me conscious, all that stuff. They end up transferring me to another hospital. So you're an engineer, you know how probability statistics work. Imagine I'm like this shell game of me getting moved from place to place and how much more the probability of what I'm about to tell you next is. So I fall asleep that night and I wake up, and first thing I wake up, my eyes focus. Like I had a head injury, so I have like a little crack here or whatever. And I was pretty dazed. I look up, and it's the woman who bought the scalp ticket is sitting at my bedside.
No way.
And I thought I was dead because I was like, I was like that. You know what I mean? Like, what the, like, it
Yeah.
was those, yeah, yeah. So
Jeez.
it made no sense to me. Now imagine the variance of us scalping tickets to a person who bought them randomly from this group of people. I'm in an accident and I get transferred from the first hospital to a second hospital. Now that's where she happens to be.
She's
Like,
working there?
yeah. So this is what her story is. Now I say story because I never met her again. She never
Mm-hmm.
came by again. I kind of, was like, what the heck? And she looked at me, she goes, it's okay. She goes, it's okay. She goes, I'm a doctor here and I was doing my rounds this morning. I recognize you. I just stayed here until you woke up. She leaves, never saw her again.
Wow.
Nothing. So very odd experience. I still try to understand it. I can't hunt people down back then because the records were back then were different. And
This
it's
was
not like
like
you can go
back in the
online
1920s. There wasn't even telephones back then.
yeah. Yeah. So there's my near-death experience. I floated over my body. I had that thing.
Yeah.
That's the only real consciousness I really remember. So, no, my life goes on. But as my life goes on, you and I probably have experienced similar things where we feel isolated, depressed, lonely, whatever, like not 100%. Now, lucky for me, I you know how people set their, like, they get in like a car accident and that's like their wake up call, right? Like, oh man, I started drinking. I got in a motorcycle accident or something happened,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, I set my bar a little higher. Like I don't know why, but I set it, put really strict standards on myself. At 40, this is what happened. So I'm 40 years old, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to be around here that much anymore. Like, that's literally the thought that popped in my head. It's like, I don't, I don't feel like this is working out. It's a very weird,
Yeah.
but it wasn't active ideation. I wasn't sharpening razor blades. I wasn't loading anything. It wasn't like that, but it was like this thing. Now, for me to hear that in my head was like alarm bells, because like I know the next step to that is starting to talk about it, and the next step to that is starting to think about it more, and how it just can spiral. So I'm a different cat. And I'm not a psychiatry guy. I never looked into it. Now I'm 50 now, but this is, like I said, 10 years ago. And so I researched like what kind of therapy might work for me. So I looked up this thing called NLP. It's called neuro linguistic programming. And there's a gentleman in town who does NLP, inspires NLP. His name's Jeff, amazing man. And what was beautiful about it is he has degrees in nonlinear dynamics and quantum mechanics.
Wow.
So he was he was in the military in Britain at some point. I don't know what level, I have no idea, but he was in some kind of military thing he mentioned, and he got all these degrees while he was serving. So he's got all these like crazy degrees. So I figured, what, worst case, if I can't have this guy help me, at least I could talk quantum mechanics, because like I like science, so that'll be fun. So he had this introductory course, it's like $35, just kind of a get to know you. Let's talk. Let's see who you are. Right. So I go to his office, and a friend of mine had just started like working with him. And she said, you know what? I think it would be beneficial to meet the guy, at least talk to him. I said, it's worth it. Right. So I think it was a Groupon even, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm in the waiting room, and he's got this little breakout room, this little chair, and like a short, like a love sofa. So he sits in the big reclining chair, and then you sit in you don't sit like laying the sofa. You just sit in like a shorter, like love seat kind of sofa thing. So he opens the door. I walk in and I scan the room, and psychologists, these people know how to read people pretty well, or they just know how to connect with you, right? Like some of these people they ding, right? He looks at me, he tilts his head, and he says, "You're different." And like, let's be honest. I would guess any middle-aged dude right now who feels the way I felt or currently feels that way would feel different. Like, so it's hard to say whether he just knew what to say, which I think it was. Like in hindsight, I think he just knew the pain I was feeling just on my face. Or he sensed this other thing. So we'll get into the other thing, because that's where it gets fun. So he starts working with me. Now, if you're familiar with neurolinguistic programming, do you have any questions at this point about what's going on?
Yes. Well, no, I did want to ask about neurolinguistic programming. I've heard of it. I kind of have a sort of idea what it is, but if you could explain a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got your psychology and psychiatry. One, can prescribe medication. The other one is more talking through some problems. How neurolinguistic programming works, it goes back in your subconscious and looks to where there's blockages in your childhood, young adulthood, things like that. Between the ages of 2 and 7 is where the majority of your operating system kind of gets built, because your brain isn't fully functioning built until 25, right? We're only born with like 20% of our brain being developed, so it's all the learning's
Some
done
of us less.
culturally. Or we don't have, that's a brain mass issue, man, not a percentage issue.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's totally cool. No, so, but you notice, so as you culturally have things, you get these, whatever you can call them, traumas or whatever you want to call them, but stuff gets imprinted on you. We all have these things. We look back, it's like, why can't I X? And you're like, there's something that kept you from doing that. You got to find out what that is and get through it, right? So So what you do is you go back in time. Now, a lot of it's through like a meditative state. And then he kind of talks through and he kind of figures out some stuff. So I had never done meditation. I'd never done visualization. I'm a Gen X guy, man. I don't do any of that stuff. I don't know. We drank from a water hose, like directly from the hose, you know? So so he goes, let's do our first meditation. Now I always have Thursdays is when I have my thing with him. So I go in his office and he goes, we're going to do a meditation today. And I'm like, okay. He goes, okay, you just want you to sit there, just relax, kind of sit and just relax your shoulders, breathe. He played some of this, new age music. And he's like, visualization. You're
At
on a
this point,
beach. Not
what are you
ever
thinking?
have I
Is
done.
this like crazy to you?
I'm like, well, I've heard of visualization, right? Like I've heard of sports athletes doing visualization, but I've never done it. So I'm open to the idea, but I'm just confused as to how it would apply to me. Because it's not like
Okay.
I'm visualizing a ski slope or like, what am I going to visualize in my life? Like standing at the stock market ringing the bell. Like, I don't know you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know how. So I was
But you're
familiar
open
with
to it.
I was familiar with the idea of it, but so I'm like, okay, cool, let's do it. I've never
Yeah.
done it.
Yeah.
I'll try anything once, twice if I hate it. Anyway, uh, so So I sat there and I'm relaxed, and he's like, you're at the beach, and you reach into the sand, and you pull out this sapphire. It's a big blue sapphire, and you look in the sky, and there's this eagle feather doing like a Forrest Gump kind of thing. Like that's how I visualize. So I'm like visualizing like that Forrest Gump scene where it's like do do do, and that thing is flying. Totally visualizing something very similar to that, just because I don't have the ability to visualize yet. Like I don't really know what's going on. So he goes, okay, you look up in the sky and there are these sheets of glass that are slowly rotating. And the best explanation would be like, do you ever watch old like Christmas movies where you're looking through the window at the TVs through like shop windows? It's
Yes.
kind of like that. Yeah. So in the window, in these panes of glass are actual scenes. Things are happening, like almost like watching television. So I'll try to do best I can, but basically, this sheet of glass turns, and this is 2007, 2015.
Okay.
So Obama's president. Just remember this. So a sheet of glass turns, and I see a black man in a suit.
Hmm.
And he has this mannerism where he reaches to shake someone's hand to his right, and then he brings his hand over to his left like this. And it looks like he's trying to shake someone's hand over here. And I saw a flash,
Hmm.
like a gunshot. I like shook out of whatever I was in. Like the flash, like
Did you hear it
like
too? Was
tears.
it
No, like
just
you
a
think of like a Batman, bow, 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 that pop, pow, like one of those
yeah.
kind of pop bang. It was kind
Yeah.
of like that. Like that's how I visualize it. Like just a flash, almost like a camera flash, but I knew it was a bullet, like a muzzle flash. I don't know. It's just
Okay.
a feel. It was a weird. I never ever experienced anything like this. This is
Hmm.
crazy to me. So I jump back, and I'm like excited. I'm excited in a very negative emotion way, and I get a tear, and I'm like, I just saw Obama get shot. Like, and I'm like panting. I'm like heavily panting, and you can look this video up, and I'll even show it to you after. I'll even share it with you to share with the audience. But he looked at me deadpanned, and he said, "That's either going to happen, or it happened in another dimension." And I was like,
What?
what? Like, yeah, like, I mean, I'm distraught. Like, I actually just watched a man get shot in my feels, whatever I sensed.
Hmm.
So I come back the next Thursday, and he sits me down. He goes, "You heard about what's happening in the news?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Clement Pinckney. You remember the South Carolina shooting with Dylan Roof?
Mm-hmm.
I saw Clement Pinckney get shot the week before it happened. And I can attest 100%. that I saw that. And he told me, which was really odd, because when he told me, I found a video from April of 2015, where he's in front of the state senate of South Carolina, because he was a state senator and a pastor. And he has this mannerism of doing this thing. And I've never, ever seen him before in my life. And he's behind a podium in a suit, and he's doing this thing, and the hairs on my arm stand up. You know what I mean? It's like I have a visceral emotion to that. Now, we've spoken. Lucid AF, in my opinion, or at least curmudgeonly, like honestly dishonest or something. I don't know. But that made no sense to me. Huh. And then it just opened the floodgates. And then I saw a lot of stuff. So I'm happy to share some fun ones. I'm happy to share some weird ones. But like, that was the moment that I was knocked conscious.
So after that, did that change just your perspective about yourself? Because you said, you've not been feeling good about yourself, having a little, thoughts of self-harm, things like that. Now what happens next?
Well, thank goodness I kept working with Jeff, and he was helpful in helping me understand that stuff. So I can tell you that whatever it is I experienced, or however I experienced it, I guess, however I processed it as a kid, whatever it did to me, or whatever I allowed it to do to me, however you want to explain it, I've got that as managed as I can. But the stuff I sense now is pretty weird. So like, I'll sit there. I was at dinner with my girlfriend, and this is my ex-girlfriend at the time, and I'm like, I will not eat this with a goat. I would not eat this in a boat. I would not eat, and I just start quoting, right? So we're on our way home, and we're up to a red light, and there's a car that wants to pull out in front of us, like coming out of like a gas station on the corner. So I'm like, I'll let it out in front of us. Now it has to come out in front of us, because if it doesn't, it means nothing. Car pulls out in front of us, license plate, DRSEUSS. Stickers all across the back. And I look at her, and I'm like, it was like 10 minutes prior. I look at her, I go, like that, like, and it's like one of those weird things where it's like, I can't explain it. I think it's real, and I'm not a religious person. I'm actually an anti-theist. I think that humans have it wrong, whatever it is. I think we just don't have it right. But like, when someone asks me if I was religious, I go, if a bush caught on fire started talking to me, I believe it. Or, you know what I mean? I'd have like questions. Well, it kind of did, and I hate it. Like, I admit, like, I hate it. Because like, I'm lucid, man. I'm like, I'm absolutely lucid, and then these things happen to me.
Okay, so. Give me another example. What else you got?
All right. Here's where here's a dark one. And I don't know if this happened. I don't know what happened from it, but this is how I experienced it. I'm at a concert at where is it? What's the one down there? Van Buren. We're at a concert at the Van Buren. And out of the blue, I just kind of zone out. And next thing I know, I have a gun in my hand, and I'm putting the gun upside down in my mouth. And I'm not kidding you. I feel the barrel scrape my teeth, the top of my teeth. I actually felt it. No.
What?
No, it was not real.
Oh.
I was just like literally like I went into like a daydream, like a zone.
Oh.
And then that's what it felt like. It felt real to me. And put the gun under, and then a voice said, do it before you change your mind.
Wow.
Now, if I were to look at the Clement to Pinckney thing, I would have a feeling someone had actually sent that out, and I picked that up from someone in very bad distress.
Yeah, what do you think that was? What is that voice?
I think it was someone. It was someone doing
someone around you.
So, someone, yes, it might not be around. It just might have been such an intense energy on that frequency that I picked up like an antenna, and I don't know the answers. I still have questions, but I do have theories. I do have theories. So here's a fun one. So I started really delving into this because I started doing past life regressions and stuff. I really delved into this. I started working with a psychic medium, and we used to do meditation circles. And they're like, okay, today we're going to go talk to someone that passed, your grandmother or your uncle, stuff like that. Right. So we're all sitting there and, we're sitting around her table, her coffee table. There's like 10 of us and they're playing music and it's like a guided meditation. Okay. You're blah, blah, blah. And I see a pitcher, or no, I see a fine glass, like a stein with a thin gold rim on it, like an European glass. And I see a wheat beer pitcher pouring into it from this side. And then I see a smelting ball. You know what a gold smelting ball where you heat up, stick it in a fire, you turn it over. And I watch gold being poured into this wheat beer. So like I'm getting gold, liquid gold. Like I'm getting all, like, this is the vision I get. And I'm like, that's not my grandmother. Like I get weird shit, right? Like, so
did you go out and buy
I'm one of these
gold after
people
that?
We should all invest in 4 precious metals, everybody. Silver, gold, brass, and lead. Don't forget. So everyone shares a story, and I'm one of these people. It's like, go ahead, you guys go first. So I go, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to explain that I didn't see my grandmother, but I saw this thing. So everybody goes around the thing. I saw my aunt. Oh my God, it was so beautiful. And I'm sitting here like, I'm going to say that I saw this thing. Like, and I feel like shit about it. I'm not going to lie. Like, I feel like I failed because whatever I saw. Because I saw this stupid picture of beer and gold and, I didn't see anybody that we're supposed to see. And everybody saw somebody, you know what I mean? Whether they're lying or not, who knows? But everybody did and I didn't. And I felt bad about it, right? So it finally comes to me. And I go, all right, well, I didn't see anybody die, but I saw this. So I explained this picture to everyone. And everybody's look at each other. I'm like, does that resonate with anybody? The psychic medium who lives at the house, she goes, hold on a minute. She gets up, leaves, comes back, and she goes, I was dusting the counter and I was either dusting the kitchen table and the coffee table because I wasn't sure how many people were going to show up. With this, she puts it down, Scotch liquid gold.
What?
Yeah, like it was a wax product. She took it out of her closet and she put it down right there in front of us. And I'm like, because I literally said liquid gold, like, but how it came to me was weird, right? Now, I do not know if that's real, but it feels freaking real with the numbers that it's happened for me,
Yeah, I think everybody has some story of like crazy coincidence, right? But that, I mean, when it happens over and over again, that's feels like something.
Yeah, and we do have those where it's like you expect someone to call and then their call, right? You have those happen a lot. So, and it's really interesting because like I'm trying to struggle with the God thing. Like, what am I? How'd I get this? Is it emergent property or is it really God top down? And I'm trying to figure these things out. Are we in a simulation, right? All these things.
Yeah,
And
you said that humans have it wrong. What did you mean by that?
yeah, so religion is the way it's an institution, just like a government, right? It's funny how government's kind of replaced religion among the left. But it is some institution of, I don't want to say control, but structure around which everyone would live their life, correct? So it is kind of an institution in that way. And to deny that these institutions over time haven't been corrupted would be a lie, right? And it's my opinion that it's okay to have the institutions, but they need a spring cleaning literally all the time. And that happens with transparency. And the second you hide the first lie, it's like the beginning of the end, because that's just the beginning. So that's my opinion about that. So when I say we have it wrong, it's we've used whatever. Remember, there's books that are not shared with the population. And I guarantee that those would raise questions within the population that would very much contradict some of the structures we might have in place. So what those experiences I think are not what they share with us as whole, right? We're getting we're getting snips. It's like we're not getting the context. We're getting CNN clips, so they can write that narrative the way they like. So it's not that I don't have this thought that there might be something, but I also don't think it's top down. I don't think there was a creator per se. I think it's an emergent property where just like life became more complex, the more we, single cell, multi-cell, small animals, insects, plants, mammals, and then growing, there's a consciousness, right? When the neurons fire, but then there's a collective consciousness, a global consciousness, a universal consciousness, and these happen over time once certain kind of metrics are met in a way. And that's how I perceive the world to be. Now, that was base reality. So that would have been reality's 1.0, right? Like Big Bang happened, then that happened. Now, I don't know if we're still in that reality. Or if we're like reality, 16.0, right? Where it's a simulation where the consciousness now is a top down, but the base one was an emergent. So if we go turtles all the way down, I still go to the point of it being an emergent property as God. I don't call it God. I call it the place from which everything came. Just to make it.
Yeah, I'm at a similar point. I think I don't know what God is, but I think there's something there.
See, like prayer to me, you can interchange these words, right? Spirituality and religion. That was like you were setting out an intention. A prayer is an intention. When people say thoughts and prayers, it's like you're just setting out the intention for I'm seeking an answer, so I'm aligning myself with the flow of answers that are available. And that's where letting go is. And that's why I don't think it's like this God thing. Like what gets me, like Jordan Peterson's really starting to get it correct where he's talked the concept of God, but he criticizes atheists and anti-theists and new atheists for saying we're reductionist in how we perceive God. And my argument to that is I think that most humans are reductionist in the way they perceive God in a positive way. So the only reason I use it in a negative way is because I think that a majority of people use it in a positive way, in a reductionist way, like the guy with the beard. He's got to come down with sentences. Now, if you want to talk philosophically of the value of the Bible and the value of Cain and Abel and the stories and the value of Abraham, I'm on board, because to say the Bible doesn't have value or something would be a very, very bad thing. But to me, what I think you did is you asked it. Let's just say it, because I'm not here to quibble over what you believe or what you don't, but you went, I'm not feeling it. I am now I'm open to the current that it is, because if you're on the river, right? You got your jet ski. Well, you're powered, right? You're kind of powered, so you're going across the current, right? You're able to go across it, but that doesn't get you what you need, because you get twice as far if you went with the current, right? So like you turn that bad boy and you align it energetically, mentally, and I have this feeling that all the answers are there and we align to them. And that's all creation.
I resonate with that, because before I was just like, I think I told you, I grew up Mormon. I kind of rejected that, pushed that off to the side. I was really just a non-caring atheist at that point, and it took me a while to come back to it. And then for a while I was just like, you know what? I think God is actually within us. I think it's part of ourself that we have to discover. And I still think there's some truth to that, and that kind of resonates with what you were saying.
Yeah, it really is. And as being within us, it emerges, because you and I now are commiserate, like you and I are together in this quest to make it something, right? So now it's now we just doubled our efforts, right, towards that goal.
Yeah. But and the whole idea of just having consciousness is absurd. It's really crazy when you think about it.
And we're
the only animals that do this. Sorry, go ahead.
No, we take it for granted that way, because you talk about the red dot test, because some animals at least can recognize that it's them that has the dot on them. Okay. But not the level we do. And then if you think about octopi, right, where they're octopuses or whatever the plural of it is,
You just
but
wanted
like
to say puss. We get it.
I did. Uh, no, I just want to tell you how many decimal points I can say pi to. No, no, but
Hey,
it's
I'm
like
the
they have
autistic
like
one
a
here.
there you go. They have the unique intelligence that we don't even know how, right? Because like
Yeah.
dolphins and whales, it's like they communicate in a way we can't express, and the way we look at intelligence is the ability to harness fire. But if you live in the water, you can't harness fire. So like how can you really
Mhm.
tell that same intelligence in the way that you would tell intelligence on land? Because it has to be measured differently. So
Yeah,
those are some things that we don't think about, right?
that's right. So, you started your podcast, Knocked Conscious. Now we know the backstory. Uh, Tell me about what you're trying to do with it. What's the goal? Is there a theme? Because you
Yeah.
kind of are all over the place with your guests. You got a lot of different people, some political people, but it's not just politics, which I really appreciate. Yeah, tell us a little more.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because before I did it, I was getting into the new atheist movement. So there were a lot of podcasts with like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, and even Sam Harris back then
Hmm.
sounded so intelligent because they sounded so measured and calm, and they every like so just I was a thirsty person for knowledge, like not knowledge but just conversation and ideas. Like,
Hmm.
give me the ideas, let us figure it out together, but don't tell me what's right and wrong. Just let's just keep exchanging ideas because that's how the more ideas the better because then we can hash them all out. And I think hashing them out's the fun part. Some you can scrap right away. Some take, some you start competing. You're like, oh, this one can make it. Is this one taking the lead? Oh, that one's a better idea, right? So I started listening to that, and then Rogan obviously was doing that, right? And he was having these people on. So my curiosity just took over. I said, who can I reach out to just talk to people? And my buddy and I figured, hey, we'll just we'll do movie documentaries, we'll do like 80s music and movies, some little pop culture, and we call it Beer Googles. So Beer Googles was like we get drunk and look up random stuff on the internet, kind of like Beer Goggles, but with 2G, right? So it'd be
Yeah,
like a web search stuff.
I like it.
So we had that. Yeah, and then we had a serious one, and the not conscious one would talk about like let's be honest, like Jeffrey Epstein and the eugenics and Century of the Self and some really interesting things like Edward Bernays and all those like psychological things of how we've been, manipulated or been kind of shown stuff, right? Included UFOs, phenomenon, all these other things. Because I've got some stuff to talk about that too, if you're interested. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, so I just started talking about that and anybody I could talk to. Jeff Hester was the first person who took a picture with the Hubble telescope. He's one of the few people who stayed on the project while remember it was broken in the beginning. They had to fix it.
Mm.
He's one of the few people who's like risked his entire career. If that chip didn't get fixed, his entire career of like 20 years was scrapped over nothing, right? That picture of like remember was it Naked Gun? The Hubble telescope was on that failure wall under like like on that failure wall Naked Gun in one of those movies. So like it was infamous for like a botch job and he stuck it out and he fixed it. And he's a guy who like got to be the guy who did that. And I thought that's awesome. I talked with him for 4 hours, it's like love to have conversations like that. So it was my curiosity. And that's what it is. Like I decriminalize sex work and yourself. But recently, let's be honest, COVID really screwed with us. I've gotten into liberty movement, freedom, and I I was a neocon in the 90s and Iraq lied to me and I'm heartbroken by what happened. I enlisted but failed the physical in 97. I'm glad I didn't make it in the military because I don't know if I'd be here to be completely honest.
Hmm.
So things
Tell me
happen.
more about that. What your conversion story to libertarianism? I actually don't know what you even call yourself, if it's libertarian,
Yeah.
anarchist, whatever. But
I don't know, but I'll be honest with you. I encourage everyone's ideas that don't suck.
hmm.
And like, let's be honest. We've seen some ideas the last couple of years that have they just sucked. So it's like, those are easy. Those are the easy ones to get out. Every other one, let's hash them out. But I'll be honest, like I said, the neocon thing was crazy. So my mom and dad both were born in Germany, 1940, 1944. That's kind of a big time.
Suspicious.
Yeah. My mother's father, my grandfather, was a Nazi soldier. And my grandfather on my dad's side was a civil engineer, but he was signed with the Nazi party because, duh, you didn't not, right? But he built, sewers and streetlights. My other grandfather was a soldier. So let me be clear. End of the war happens. My grandmother, my grandfather, my mom, and my aunt, they're in East Germany. So East Germany happens. Soviet Union takes over, and my mother, grandmother, aunt, and grandfather all escape from East Germany in 1953. This is before the wall goes up. I think the wall goes up like 59. How it was my mom, aunt, and grandmother were taking a trip. People don't know the geography, but basically West Germany and East Germany had a line, but there was a city called Berlin. And inside Berlin, there was a west portion of Berlin that was a free entity within the borders of East Germany. So it was a real, like an island. It was very odd. So you had to escape into West Berlin and then fly out. Because if you drove through, they just stop you along the way and get you again if they really wanted to. I mean, that's how they did it. So my aunt, whatever, goes on with my mom. My mom's like 10, 7, 8. I forget exactly how old she is, something like that. And they grab these two young girls who had all their linens and stuff they packed with them. So it looked really suspicious, like they were trying to leave. Soldiers grabbed them, took them off the train. They didn't come back on. So like my mom's telling me the story as a kid and she's freaking out, right? So they get over. Later, my grandfather has a business trip in Berlin. They end up meeting somewhere. Well, my grandmom's supposed to meet my grandfather and he's late and they didn't meet right on time and she's freaking out. Like I can only imagine what that was like. I mean, you don't have cell phones. You're not connected. You're literally scheduled to meet at a time with a piece of paper in a communist country trying to get into like a free country. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So they get across. It's awesome. But East Germans are seen by West Germans as pieces of crap because we got cultural again because that's what you had to do, right? Why are you invading our land? You're East Germany. You're not even Western. Like, that's how quickly it happened. Like, how quickly the tribalism happened from you were brothers in arms in a fascist regime, and now you're communist forced upon you. You know what I mean? Now, the crazy thing is how my grandfather actually decided to leave, and he didn't tell anybody. He was at his house. My mom came over, and my mom had a friend who came over. My mom's friend goes, "Here, Uncle Egon, blah, blah, blah." You know, they all called Uncle, whatever, back in the day, like all friends or whatever. "Here, look at this thing, blah, blah, blah." He took the piece of paper. It was like to join some like youth movement. That's how they always got you, right? Some youth movement. He tears the piece of paper. He tears in front of the kid, and the kid tattles on it, like tells his dad. And like, you're just like, what? Like, you can't even imagine. And East Germany was like a 2-to-1 spy to civilian like ratio by the time it went down. It was like the surveillance state of that, or surveillance state, was crazy. So they come across. My dad comes across all on his own. He walks from Hamburg to Berlin with his family while bombs are going around. Or not Hamburg to Berlin, Hamburg to Munich, I think. It was like 120 miles, something like that. One of his siblings dies of malnutrition on the way. So they move. After the war, my grandfather's they're blacklisted for 5 years because he joined the Nazi party. So he couldn't work. So my dad literally had a bike route, literally worked for breakfast. Like, he'd do a bike route, get breakfast. He ends up leaving the entire family on his own at like 19, comes across a boat, comes to America, joins the military. He's like, I'll get citizenship fast. Doesn't speak English. So it's 59, 60. My dad's in the military, doesn't know English. The sergeant's yelling at him in English. And there's a Yiddish guy next to him, a Jewish guy next to him, who translates English into Yiddish that my dad can half understand. So like, when I think humanity, once again, like we're talking about my dad's German people slaughtered this man's Jewish people 20 years ago. 20 years ago. But they're standing shoulder to shoulder in a common cause in the United States, getting barked at, and this man wants to help my dad get through it because they're together in this. And that's what humanity is to me, you know? So it's really awesome that he got through that. And then my dad became a barber and had a life, and that's how we got to where we are. But like my mom's anti-communist, you know? So growing up, the whole Saddam Hussein thing happened. I had a T-shirt that read, "Hey Saddam, this scud's for you." It was like a "Hey bud for you" like joke, right? I'm still looking for the picture somewhere in one of my things so I can put it up. But I just believed in it. We're gonna crush him. Oh, weapons of mass destruction. He had nuclear weapons. Gaddafi's next. I remember Gaddafi in the 80s when we bombed him with the F-111s. Like I remember all those things, all the cartoons, and how simple it was and how easy that was to buy. Like, oh yeah, this is all real. And then just the first crack is like Colin Powell going, "Hey, I regret kind of what I said." I think it might have been like the start, you know, and then it just opens, and then you're heartbroken because, like, I'm not gonna lie, like this country is still the best thing in the world. It's the absolute best thing in the world, but it can be better. You know what I mean? Like it's not as good as it was, and it can be better. So like that's why I fight. So my curiosity started it, the libertarian stuff. I just broke away from the right side. This is the first time I did not vote for president. I voted NOTA. I voted Republican since 92, so I do feel liberated now for the first time. I don't know. I think I can get Incapistanized, but I'm not radicalized because like I'm radically non-aggression. I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're most of the way there then. Yeah, it's crazy. Like how many, basically all Republicans now, even John McCain before he died, said, yeah, maybe Iraq wasn't the right way to go. But it's so crazy that they still push the same propaganda for the new places, right? Iran, Russia, China, they're still all big war hawks for the and they do the same types of propaganda over and over, and they just don't think like, oh, well, the last one was a mistake. Maybe this one might be too. Do you ever, I mean, do you think that? Do you see that too?
Yeah, so we're obviously covering Scott Horton's book, Provoked, and
Yeah.
you've been reading. How far have you been in the paperback so far, would you say?
Oh, I'm like 70 pages now.
Right. It's so dense. It's so
Yeah.
hard because the names, the places, like it's funny. I made a joke because we're doing a weekly book club, right? And I'm like, even if the names were like Smith and Jones and it was Pennsylvania and Michigan, I'd still be confused. But it's like Al Jawali and in Cabal in the Kubal, and you're like, where and what and who? So it's like pretty dense. But we'll just go through it really quickly. Collapse of the Soviet Union, November 9th, 1989. Berlin Wall goes down. Bush Senior says, "We're going to be good to you guys. We're going to be gracious, just like you were when the Germans lost World War II and the Japanese. We rebuilt them, right? We're not going to move NATO 1 inch east. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to do anything. You just relax there, Soviet Union. You just relax, Russia. Nothing's going to happen as we slowly encroach further and further. And then you look at it simple. I think I covered it in the last one, but it was a 2-1 margin in the Foreign Relations Council to not do this stuff. So how could it possibly go? Well, this guy Bruce Johnson, or it's either Johnson or Jackson. I apologize, but it's in the book. He is not only on the committee to expand NATO and the committee for the liberation of Iraq, but he's the strategic development partner for Lockheed Martin, the largest military sales in the world. So he's basically pushing. During the night, he promotes in cocktail parties to push initiatives to just sell more military equipment for his company that he runs during the day. And if you can't see that just basically in every single way, and then they're getting kickback, I don't know what to tell you, because we go from Bosnia to Kosovo 2 and boom to Iraq 2, Iraq 3, or Afghanistan. So what are your thoughts?
It's
I'd love
Bruce
to hear your
Jackson, by the
insight
way.
on it.
I wrote it
Bruce
down
Jackson. That's
in my notes. I was
Thank you.
just looking. Yeah, freaking insane. He also then went on to create the Committee for the Liberation of Iraq. So not only was he involved with the NATO expansion, but the Iraq War, and he's working for Lockheed Martin. So like, you don't see the conflict of interest here.
Yeah. And the more we see that, obviously, the more we see what's the largest concentration of millionaires? Washington, D.C. Why? Duh. Like you hear these guys having these luncheons in $3,000 suits. And I'm like, okay, I'm a capitalist. I'm totally fine with you earning your cred. But charging $800 for a hammer so that you can punch up your budget. So like, and I used to be like, yeah, that was the cost of freedom. Freedom was us stomping on people's throats. And like, no, freedom is the lack of that, the lack of intervention, the lack of pushing, the lack of outside forces. It's about the natural forces of humanity getting along.
Absolutely, man. I, I have not heard about this Provoked Book Club. Can you tell me about that?
Oh, yes, I can. Sure. All right. Provoke Book Club. Mondays. We just did our first one, December 9th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're doing it for 8 weeks because that book is like 660 pages of hellfire and brimstone, ladies and gentlemen. Like I think I want to just call it buckle up. I think I just want to start with like buckle up because this every week there's just craziness. And what it is, we're finding just this blueprint of the same thing that America does over and over again. We blame other people while we do it, and we just keep pushing. So, have you? Can I ask you a question
Hmm.
about Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, sure.
Ha- have you heard about the Hull letter?
No.
Okay, so when we're done this, and I'm just sharing this for everyone to check this out. I think it's called the Hull letter, and basically these were points of things that we did to push Japan into forcing their hand into eventually attacking us. So, like even back then, and we look at Tonkin as a false flag event, and then we look at these other things, right? Like it's crazy how we just continually do this, and I think Dwight Eisenhower's right about the whole military-industrial complex when he left office.
Yeah. I'm only like 10% of the way through the book. And there's already just so much that would have pissed me off if I'm leading Russia or any other country. And there's still like, there's still 700 pages left to go. So I'm also just amazed at the restraint of the Russians over the years. Yeah, even
I
including
totally
now.
agree. Yeah, especially considering the amount of backup they have,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Like the largest number, and this is probably the second largest number of the big ones, right, or something. So what are your thoughts on that, man? What are your thoughts on what's going on? Share with me. I'd love to pick your brain.
Right now. Well, I don't know if you read The White Pill. Michael Malice wrote it. It talks about the rise and fall of the Soviet Union. And he tells the story about how Gorbachev and it was Reagan as president at the time, both both privately said that they were not ever going to use nukes. And that was the big fear, of course, at the time, right? Cold War's been going on. That's the biggest threat. Kids in schools are hiding under their desks practicing for a nuclear fallout, which is obviously not going to do anything, but you got to feel like you're doing something, right? But they did not know that both of them each held this thought privately. And that was the biggest reason that we didn't get into nuclear war because it was very close. I think at least once, but probably multiple times. Um, so it's very, very that restraint that I was talking about is something that's very important. And when I talk about like it doesn't really matter who the president is. In a lot of ways, that's true, but in that one way, it's very untrue. It's very important. Who's at the helm? Who's at the control of this? You know?
Yeah, even optically, right? Like
Hmm.
we don't even know now who's optically on control. It certainly doesn't appear like the guy that was elected is.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah,
if
I
you're a
also
global
wonder.
leader, right?
I also
Yeah,
wonder
go ahead.
how much control Trump will have when he actually gets in office. Uh, have they made some, backroom deals, concessions, or whatever to kind of keep him at bay? Probably. But what's going on now with Russia? I cannot believe that Russia has not just attacked us straight up. I know
It is a shock.
the only thing is the mutual, what does he call it? Mutual
Assured destruction.
self-destruction.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mutually assured destruction. Yeah.
that's it. Yep. Yeah, that's got to
That's
be
why
the
it's called
only reason,
MAD, by the
because
way.
they know if they do, they're dust. But then we are too. So that's
Yeah,
a very scary
it's
thought.
over.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in line with that, I did have a vision of that. So
Mm,
I had a vision about 8 months ago. And once again, like when I talk about how I get these things, I can't explain how I get them. They come, and I, it's in hindsight that I see it. But basically, once again, I know this sounds really woo once again, but my car accident, I think, did something to me where it jarred something loose. Or it did do something energetically where I may have switched souls, and I haven't even talked about that yet.
hmm
Um, but something certainly I feel happened where it aligned me with some kind of thing where I can see stuff. And I do think it's probabilities. I think the probabilities are out there like quanta, and I think I see either the strongest outcome, which would be like the worst outcome, or I see a very highly probabilistic outcome. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it might not, right? Sometimes I'm sure there's a million thoughts I have in a day that don't happen, that I don't go, "Oh, oh crap," right? Like I'm not going to lie,
Right.
that we all have that.
Yeah.
So, but when it comes to this, I saw, like, what I saw was I was on the ground, I look in the distance and I see a mushroom cloud. And then I start lifting up off the ground and then backing up like I'm backing off Earth, and I start seeing cloud, 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 cloud. And I'm feeling
Mm,
like, yeah, this is over. Like I felt it over. And it's daunting because these are like these are real feelings, whatever that is. And you can call it crazy. I mean, I don't mind calling it whatever. It's just abnormal, but I get these feelings. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I've only scratched the tip of the iceberg with like how crazy it's gotten over time.
yeah. So how do you feel about the next 4 years with Trump coming in? Do you have hope? Do you think there's something good there?
Yeah. So, um, the whole time, let's be honest, we've had three absolute trash candidates on the one side in a row.
Hmm
Absolute trash. Now, you can call Trump whatever you want. You can like him, don't like him. The guy talks shit. He's a fucking salesman. Like he's a car salesman. And that's not a criticism. The guy works deals. The guy works deals. He's a dealer and a wheeler. Like that's how he talks. That's how he works. And Dave Smith keeps saying it. And I reiterate his stuff, but it's the media don't take him seriously, but they take him literally. And the people who like him, they take him seriously, but they don't take him literally. So when he says, I'm going to blah, 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 indict Hunter or whatever, put him up for death penalty or something, you're like, what? Okay. Like, we can poo-poo that because we're like, you're ridiculous. But he's also the guy who said, take the gun first. And he launched Operation Warp Speed. And he let those governors get away with the mandates in the beginning. And which actually cost him, to be completely honest. Like if he couldn't see that himself, he kept Fauci, he kept certain people. Yes, he didn't know better. I know that. They totally used his naivety to do stuff and set precedents. One precedent I like to set is the Secretary of State Austin, right?
hmm
You used to not be able to come directly from military or from a military corporation. But look at Trump's previous guy. The last guy, he got rid of somebody and they coaxed him into choosing somebody, saying, okay, we can allow it this one time. Why do you think they allowed him this one time to do it? So that they could do it with Lloyd Austin, so that they can do it the next time, so they can do it the next. So I think if you look back at some of the things that Trump allowed, I think they used his ignorance. And
mm
how could you possibly know how that shit works? I'm not blaming him other than like you couldn't possibly know the system unless you've been in it. And usually, if you understand the system by that point, you're corrupted by that point, right? So, like, there's the balance that you got to play. So, what are your thoughts on those 4 years? What are your thoughts on his general demeanor and things like that?
Oh man, his demeanor. I think I told you last time we talked. I was never like a supporter, but I could see that people were just not telling the truth about him, and I also took him not literally, but sort of seriously. And at first I was like, ah, this is a joke. He's not going to get anywhere. And then he started making moves and actually getting somewhere. I'm like, okay, time to take him seriously. Um, I I think he doesn't know what he's talking about on almost anything. He does have a unique talent for getting attention, getting people to look at him and getting people to, make deals like you were saying. So that's something. Last time he had nobody around him that was good. Maybe I won't say nobody, but nobody I remember.
Wait, Bolton? Come on, man.
Yeah. Mike
I'm
Pence,
not
right?
defending Bolton ever. Oh yeah, yeah.
um,
Thomas Massey, but he happened to be in Congress. That's the only person. Yeah,
well, he had big fights with Thomas Massey back then.
I know. I know. It's
Yeah.
crazy, right? I
Yeah.
know to
So
the point where like, oh, good.
anyway, yeah, I was gonna say now I think he's got good people around him. Again, not perfect, but Vivek Ramaswamy, what's his name? RFK's okay. Who is the? You got me talking too much, man. You're supposed to be talking in this one.
Well, Tulsi. Oh, you want me to talk more? All right. Well, let's.
Yeah,
You know what? This is really. You got Tulsi. You got all these people. But this
yeah,
is. Can I ask you this question?
yeah,
As an ANCAP,
yeah,
we're capitalists, right? We are about free market and all that. But we also know that the corporate it can't be crony capitalism. What are your thoughts about Elon's closeness to the actual government, considering the number of contracts he has and the power he has with Twitter and or with X and everything? Is that any concern for
yeah.
you at all?
A little. I mean, a lot of. I don't know how much, like what percent, but he's got a lot of his money through government subsidies with Tesla and SpaceX and things. So that part concerns me a little bit. I think just being a big corporate boss doesn't concern me, but what is he going to do? And he's talking about cutting government. He's not talking about growing it. He's talking about 90%, 80% cuts, $2 trillion dollars off the budget. So that to me is would be a huge step in the right direction. I don't know how much he can actually get done, but no, just being a corporate guy doesn't concern me. It's who are you as a person?
Yeah.
And I think he's
And
I think he's a good guy.
I, I, I I honestly think he's an alien. I think he doesn't. I don't think he has ill will. I really don't.
Yeah,
But I mean, if you're a billionaire, how did you get there? I mean, you had to make a deal or two. It's impossible not to, right?
sure.
You have to have a mentality to be able to manage that. Like, so just think about what that is in the head of someone.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I don't know if I could manage that greatness inside one individual head, if that makes if that
Oh
makes
yeah,
sense.
no,
I feel
definitely
like
not.
literally get to your head, right?
And
So,
as an
all right.
NCAP,
So
yes, I'm deeply distrustful of government in all forms. So I don't really trust anyone around it, but at least to be talking about cutting, okay, I'm intrigued. I'm not, I don't buy it. I'm not 100% sure it's going to happen. But okay, you got my attention. That's where I'm at.
I like it. All right, man. I like it. Well, if you'd like, I can continue with some of the weird stuff that happened over time as I delved into this craziness because, like, this is me exposing my soft white underbelly, man. I don't do it often. Um, Clearly, the way I speak to you about what I've experienced is not how I talk on X. It's not how I express ideas. It's not like through some woo thing, but
Yeah, I
it
like it,
gets
man.
weirder. Yeah.
I did want to ask you about
So
one thing. So we both had the legendary Spike Cohen on our shows. Just one of the guests we have in common. He made the case on my last show, and I shared a clip about it, that he said libertarianism is about respect, respect for people's personal autonomy, privacy, property, the ability to make your own decisions about your own life. And it turns out you were way ahead of this. You shared an episode of yours, an old one with me, where we talked about respect versus courtesy. So I guess first, what's the difference? How do you differentiate those?
That's the best question I've ever been asked. So thank you. Seriously,
You're
that's not a
welcome.
joke.
Thank you.
Spike Spike has a whole speech on respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the honor of meeting him at Freedom Fest. I'd like to stop very quickly with just speaking with how amazing Spike is, and I'm going to tell you because Spike is popular. Anyone who knows anyone, and I don't know anybody. I know Spike,
Mm-hmm.
but Spike knows everyone. So I'm at Freedom Fest. The first day, he saw me and makes a beeline for me.
Hmm.
He's in the middle of a conversation. That's Spike Cohen. So like, I can't explain, but it's like there's something about integrity there. It's like, how could he know who I literally talked to him 2 weeks prior. He had the thought to know I was going to be there, to maybe even look, to recognize like that. I find that impressive from a person at that stature, at that level that he's at. And yeah, he's not at the, gazillions level, but he's definitely at the level where he's getting a crowd around him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah. So he has this whole thing about respect, and I actually wholeheartedly disagree with him 100%. But he's not wrong. So here's the thing. Respect is, you don't start at respect. You cannot start at respect, because respect includes a trust factor over time that you build with that person that you have with. So courtesy is the base form of actions we must all do as humans to each other. Let someone in front of you when you're merging. Open a car door. Open a door to a building. Pull out a chair. Say please and thank you. That's actually not respectful. That's courteous. Simple
Mm-hmm.
courtesy. And this is what I think happens. And I really do push on this. And it's not that I disagree with him by any means, but it's not that I disagree with it. It's just that I think that courtesy precedes the respect. So I think if we're all courteous to each other and we have that foundational set of core values that we don't, tread on people, and we're just courteous, we can then build the respect.
Mm.
The reverse of that is we got to the point is where we conflate the two. But the problem is, if I don't respect you, then I can't be courteous to you, because now courtesy and respect are the same thing. So like, how many times do people on one side of one aisle, right, or the other, is like, well, I don't respect you, so I don't have to be even kind to you. I don't have to be courteous because I don't respect you. But like, courtesy goes outside of the respect. Like, you could hate, I hate people that I work with, and I know this. There's one specific person who uses their full name. And, you could shorten the name, like say it's James, for example, and it's Jim. Everybody calls him Jim at work, but he actually hates being called Jim. I don't like this guy at work, but I call him
Because
James
of that.
because of that. It's just out of courtesy. It's like, James, I disagree with you, or James, this is, but I do that because it's what he wanted. So I already come to him at his level, and now we can have a conversation. So I agree with Spike. I just think that courtesy is actually a more base level, and the respect can come from that, but that's not required for us to interact with each other.
So
What are your
respect is
thoughts?
kind of an evolved version of that courtesy that is earned, is what you're saying.
It is an earned thing from continuously showing courtesy to each other, building trust over time, common interests, things like that. And then the respect, that's an organic thing that takes time as well. And it could, like your experience that you had at the gym, it could flow over you. It's like, man, I respect this guy. Like the second you meet him, or you could even question yourself, and then you're like, they have to earn that. So there's all different types of people and how they express it and how they gain your trust.
Can we take it back a minute and talk about courtesy? Why should we even be courteous to each other?
Mm, I That's a great question. Coming out of the non-aggression principle, it's, I mean, there's no need. I mean, generally, discourtesy would lead to conflict of some sort, probably lead to some kind of violence.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
it's really, yeah, it's probably the hardest question to answer as to why, but it's like, it's been functional throughout society. also. So it's a functional thing. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah.
would have said the easiest way to know is to not be courteous to people and see what happens. I think that would not turn out too well for you.
Yeah, you'll be exiled on the island. And back in the
Yeah.
day, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get exiled, you're dead.
Right.
You know what I mean? You get thrown out of the tribe, you're gone. It's a little different world that we can kind of get through because we have Amazon, but you know, it's not like it was.
All right. Well, yeah, I like that. And that's a good episode, by the way, for people that want to get a Kickstarter into Knocked Conscious. Go check it out.
Thank you.
You also mentioned Dave Smith, and I just saw you tweeted about he mentioned weaponizing empathy. You took a little bit of a turn on that too. You said you like to refer to it as weaponizing compassion.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that, and what's the use?
Yeah. So what we're finding is um, Richard Dawkins wrote The Selfish Gene, and it spoke about how we are in it for ourselves, right? And what we're finding is that community seems to work better. But community is an evolved idea because it's once again worked, right? It's been functional. So when I talk about the compassion part, let's use COVID. Real great example. I'll put people were vax injured. From the data I've seen from Alex Berenson, John Campbell, Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Pierre Corey, from some of the data, some of the vax injuries, 1 in 800 in some of those batches of vax injured. That's a high number considering less than 0.5% died. So 1 in 200 died, but you're going to take a risk at 1 in 800 in the injury. Now, some people are willing to take that risk, but you didn't even know that was a risk you were taking, right? So you didn't even have the information. So you're being lied to this whole time, right? So you try to share it with people and you're like, guys, you're being manipulated. They're lying to you. You know what I mean? COVID is not this thing that it is. It's not good, but try to get healthier. Try to supplement. Take some vitamin D at least, you know? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
don't take the horse dewormer, fine, but just do something, get some fresh air, whatever. So they kept pushing that narrative. And how bad did it get? What was it? Don't kill your grandmother. You got to get vaccinated. You got to get vaccinated. And I literally just posted this 2 days ago, and someone goes, "Oh my gosh, it wasn't for the vaccine. Some people died waiting too long for it." And when I talk about weaponizing compassion, well, okay, you're correct. Some people may have benefited from this vaccine. That's possibly true. I do know people who suffered from being forced to take it too. So where's the compassion there? So when you weaponize compassion, unfortunately, it can only go in one certain direction that you weaponize it. It can't go the other way. So it automatically makes anyone not in that the enemy in some weird way, and it separates us more.
Makes sense. And was that convincing for that person?
No, it never is. It's never
It never
convincing.
is.
Remember what you said.
Yeah.
You feel it, and then you come up with the idea after. That's how the compassion's weaponized, right? Look, do you think I care? Do I want people to suffer if they got sick and there's something that can make them feel better? No. But I also don't want people forced to take something that they don't want to either. Like none of those things are appealing to me. But which is the net worse? The net worse is a tyrannical force of doing something on another. That's all I can say. It's a worse of the two. So when it's the compassion thing. So if you look at the left, do you not have compassion for people who have dysmorphia? 100%. If I felt that I wasn't in the body I'm supposed to be in, I don't even know what that's like. But I can tell you that the compassion for the percentage of people to do that, to change the rest of the 90% of society or whatever the percentage is, and this isn't a better than, worse than, but to follow that would destroy all the tenets of the society that allowed you to be an offset of it. Like, I'm a weirdo, and the whole libertarian thing for me is, if I were the one in charge, I'd want to use all the powers I could. So I shouldn't have them. Real simple. I just shouldn't have them to use, because if I did have them, I'd use them. It's so simple. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. duh. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on all
that? I'm with you, dude. Don't give me that, because I will be corrupt as hell.
Exactly, right?
You're gonna give me money? You're telling me I have an unlimited budget? Hell yeah, let's go.
Darn right. Give me that black card.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing about that on social media is just some people, you just gotta dunk on them, and they're not gonna be convinced. But someone else will see it, and maybe you'll start planting a seed in their mind.
And that's what I do. It's really interesting. Like, Facebook and Twitter and X are very different audiences. Now, the good news is I'm Gen X borderline boomer, right? So like I can kind of communicate with the boomers and the millennials. So I'm kind of in this bridge kind of area. So I'll say something on X and I'll just put it on Facebook, just because it's a totally different audience. They probably never even seen it before. And I just use it as bait to see who comes out of the water. Just sit there, you're dipping, and you're like, you get one on the hook, and you're like, okay, cool. Thank you so much for engaging, because I've thought 8 posts ahead. So all right, let's start. Go. What's the problem with this? And then they go, rah, 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 and you're like, this is the counter to this exact point. Okay, what's your next one? And it is. Some people do see it from the outside and they're like, wow, that's really interesting. And I've had some messages. I've gotten direct messages. What? Who are you voting for, man? I can't tell what side you're on. What side are you on? And I'm like,
yeah.
Side?
Those are my favorite.
What are you talking about? Right? Do you get those?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, talking to lefty friends, it's like, oh, you're just a Republican. And talking to Republican friends, it's the opposite. So it's very bizarre. Yeah, and social media too, like years ago when it was kind of new, I was just like, I was scared. I'm like, oh, I don't want anyone disagreeing with me. I can't handle this. Like, oh, someone thinks I'm wrong. I'm scared. Now I get excited. I'm like, yes, please engage with this.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So how do you mirror the person, or do you always, like, your responses, are they always stoic, like fact-based, unemotional, or do they mirror the other person, or are they like just rageaholic tweets?
I'm not the rage guy. I don't really do that, but I like to match what they're saying, even like the sentence structure sometimes. I try to mirror what they have said and just turn it around to the opposite view and see if that hits them, and usually they're just like, "Oh, fuck you." But yeah. They don't have anything intelligent to say after that, so yeah, it's very rare you get like an ongoing engagement.
Yeah. Well, so what would you say would be some of the topics that you've like actually had some decent discourse about with someone you disagree with? Have you ever had any of those? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but that's what editing.
Yeah, I can't think right now. The COVID stuff, people are pretty tribal about, like it's really hard to break through. If somebody believes that Fauci's great and vaccines saved 1 million lives, and it's really hard to get anything out of that. Just trying to think what else. Election stuff. Yeah, sometimes with like politics, it's like, you try to point out the same thing. Like they'll say, oh, Trump did whatever bad thing that they don't like. And I'm like, oh yeah, Biden did that same thing too. And they're just like, shut up. So I don't know, man. It's really
like the drone strikes, right?
I'm too
like drone
autistic
strikes
about
and Obama
it, I
and
guess.
stuff. Yeah, I hear you. That's cool, man. That's great. So yeah. So do you want to delve down crazier into like what happened to me, or
let's get another story to wrap this up here.
All right. I'll share 2 because it's weird.
Okay.
So once I had this stuff happen to me, I started really going down the crazy rabbit hole. I was going to meditation sessions and all these meetups for like, sitting in a pond and meditating and sitting on blankets and going to
Hmm.
a medical medium guy who would touch you and tell you what's wrong with your body, like crazy stuff. So I go to this thing called an empath meeting or an empath group. An empath is just like people who are sensitive to stuff. And allegedly, what I have is some kind of precognitive empath ability where I can see stuff happen. It's really weird. So I'm in this thing with six women and me. And this guy, Emil Faith, he's in town. He's with his wife. They both do it. She's like a Reiki practitioner. He's a medical medium. And he's like, welcome. So he starts talking about what empaths are and how, detoxify your pineal gland, how to not take all the toxic medicine, metals and all that stuff, how to like purge your body and detoxify. I'm like, this stuff's really good, but it's like an empath class. So we're all sensitive and like we're all crying. We're all like pretty like emotional. Well, the meeting or the class lets out early or whatever. And he's like, okay, I got some time. So I'll do a medical meeting. I'll do a medical reading for everybody. Everybody just sit across from me. I'll put my hand in yours. I'll tell you what's wrong with you. I've got enough time. Let's do it. There's only 7 of us. So I'm like, ladies first, because like I'm a skeptic. I love this. This is my favorite part of these people. My favorite
Hmm.
part of these people is debunking the fuck out of them. It's like, it's my favorite. So I'm but I'm emotional, right? And these women are going. So first one puts it in hands. He goes, "Oh my gosh, I sense you had a liver. You have a liver issue." Blah blah. She's like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I have a liver. I have this thing. I actually have to take this thing for my liver." Blah blah blah. Oh, a heart thing, a kidney. He's going through lungs. Like he's just doing through all these different people as they're going through one by one. And I'm listening for like timbre, his tone, what he's saying, how he's saying it, right? I'm looking for him to like I'm looking for breaks. I'm looking for weird things that he says that aren't in line with whatever else he says because I'm a skeptic. I don't believe this shit. Okay. So I'm sitting there and I'm a diabetic. So I'm like, okay, he'll tell me I'm diabetic. Yay. Okay. Let's see if he does this. Right. So everybody goes, I go up. I sit down. I put my hands out. He puts his hands in mine and freaks out. The dude pulls his hands back, he gasps and he jumps back. And he's like, like that. And I'm looking around the room and I'm like, I just broke the doctor. What just happened? Like, no clue. Now, he didn't do any of that with any of the other people that he was sitting there with. So I am completely uh I'm flabbergasted. I have no idea what happened. He goes, okay. He goes, all right, you have a lot of energy. And I'm like, okay. Like, honestly, I'm literally looking at this guy, like, literally with a third eye, stink eye, like, whatever. Okay. You have a lot of energy. He goes, okay. He takes a sip of water. He centers and he goes, okay, let's try this again. And I'm like, okay. Like, barely want to touch the guy because I'm going to electrocute him or something. So puts his hands out. I put my hand in his and he looks at me and he goes, you're very far from home. You're very homesick and your family misses you. I'm like, okay. Yeah, I got problems at home. My family lives in Philadelphia, right? So they're 2,000 miles away. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm in Philadelphia. Like literally. So I go, okay, my parents are in Philadelphia. Yeah, my family's home. Like I didn't think anything of it. He looks at me dead eyed. He goes, no, your star family. You're not from here. You're from Sirius. Swear to God, he says, you're from Sirius. And then he shakes my hand. He kind of grabs it. He goes, it's okay, man. I am too. And I'm like, is this dude just looking for a friend? Like, no idea.
Yeah,
Like,
is he hitting on you or what?
what? Right. So then I start looking into this shit and there's more rabbit holes, but like, that's like a story where it's like, what? So like, I keep getting these ticks of different puzzle pieces that fit, but I honestly don't know what it is. I could just all be in my head, but it doesn't seem that way. Like, to be completely honest.
Maybe you are an alien, man. Who knows?
Who knows? I think we all are.
Could be.
Stuff of
Could
stars, my
be.
friend. We're all star seeds.
That's wild.
So,
Yeah. Okay. Did you have
yeah.
one more? Or was that?
Oh yeah, I'll share one more just like to kind of
Yeah.
share what we were talking about, like that external. So I'm on I-10 and it's just drizzling very little bit. And we're at the one lane over from the HOV lane that goes by. Pickup trucks going by a little faster than us in the HOV in the other lane. And something just I look up and I get a ding of like danger. Now,
Hmm.
it's not internal out, like it's not a thought. It's like someone pushed a button that said danger. Like it felt like a controller button, right? So I'm like, I literally go to my girlfriend, I go, that guy's in trouble. That's going to be a car accident. Something's going to happen with that guy. I just said that right away. Now we're driving down the road. He goes up a little bit ahead and it comes around a bend. And we're about a mile or two from that bend area and something flashes and I see the pickup truck that's there, kind of like I was in the concert hall with the gun thing. It wasn't real, but I saw the vision of it. His
Mm-hmm.
truck swerves and comes across like the 4 lanes of the I-10. So I'm like, weird. So like I naturally let off the gas, and I kind of put on my turn signal. I move over 2 lanes. Up ahead, there's actually a car accident on I-10 in the bend. The guy locks up his brakes because someone had gone into the HOV lane and came across all the 4 lanes and actually came up. And I literally just came up to a stop. My girlfriend, I looked at her, I go, you okay? Like it was like I was actually being given like programs to do what I did. It was so like I was in the zone. So it wasn't like I was consciously thinking about it. So I was more susceptible to those inputs, I guess, in a weird way. I can't explain it, man. But like I said, I can tell you, and you talk to me long enough to be like, oh, okay, at least experience what he did. I don't know if it's real or not, but that's what he saw. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I
So
believe you.
yeah.
It's
So it
wild.
is
I have
weird,
no
but
idea
it is
what it
driving
is
me.
either.
Yeah, and it does drive me because it does make me think like
Hmm.
we cannot destroy ourselves here. This is really bad. We're not being good people. We're not being good beings on this earth. And it's not about pollution. It's just about how we are. We're not advancing the world, like the universe. I'm not talking about the one world order bullshit. None of that. I'm talking about
Hmm.
we are not contributing to the whole the way we should be.
And why not?
Because I think our focus is wrong. Our focus is on the greed. There's nothing wrong with working hard and making a profit, but the greed needs to stop. And that's a human thing. So who knows if that can go away? But once again, like the best we could do is transparency, right? At least so we at least know what's going on.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. We got to know Mark very well here today. Anything else you want to hit before we sign off here? Where can people find your
Just
stuff?
don't. I'm at Mark Sean Puls on X and on Insta, but I don't use Insta much. And I'm Mark Sean Puls everywhere. So Rumble, YouTube, everything. Thank you so much for having me, and please don't unfriend me after this because it's weird.
No way, man. We got to do this again. It was great.
Yeah, and if I may, like I said, like this, I can tell you that it's totally weird. I don't know what happened. I do have ideas, and like I would love to have a conversation about what I think this stuff is too. Like we should have some kind of discussion because like you had an experience, man. I want to delve more into yours too because like you had more than that one. I'm sure, So
Sure, I have. I got to think about it too.
This stuff's weird. Yeah, this stuff's unique. But like obviously you're talking to a guy who's lucid. I'm not sitting here scribbling on walls like saying like the end is nigh and stuff. It's I don't know why, but I don't know why it's me either. You know what I mean? So it really hurts with the purpose thing because I don't understand it. But thank you again for having me.
Well, let's do it again. We'll discover that purpose.
Yes.
We'll dive deeper. We'll get back into it. I love it. Thank you, Mark. And thanks
Thank you.
everybody for watching. Drop the mask. See you next time.